Connect. Yeah, I did one earlier with Zuri today, and you know her
Yeah,
from Medium too. She's wonderful. She's
yeah.
wonderful. I
She's on
appreciate
my
talking to her.
schedule tomorrow, I believe.
Oh, good.
So
I'll have
yeah,
to send, and that I love to see that. I love to see those extra connections. We're
yeah.
building a
We've
web.
been
See, we're building a web.
yeah. Hi, folks. This is
Hey, folks.
Marlon Weems, the journeyman. As you can see, we're already in progress. I'm here with my friend Walter
Ryan.
Ryan
Yep,
or Rain. I doggone it, I wasn't going to mess that up.
they're all good, buddy. I know that. If it's a choice between two, I always get it wrong. That's the way my life is.
And you know, when your last name is Weems and you get called Weeks all the time, I should be a whole lot better. You would
Oh, I
think,
wouldn't have messed
right?
that up. I don't think I wouldn't have got that one,
So
but
I
yeah,
know
that's
it's
all
a
right.
one syllable word, and you would be surprised. But anyway, I digress. For folks who are new here, the Journeyman newsletter is where I explore the intersection between politics, American culture, the economy, and racism, specifically anti-black racism, because that's kind of my experience. I think all those things, in one way or another, tend to intersect. So, and it also gives me kind of a broad remit to write about whatever I get mad about. So
Absolutely.
Walter and I actually know each other, and this is kind of the first time this has happened. We first encountered each other on Medium, which is sort of where, when I first started publishing, not a newsletter, but just sort of, random articles. That was where I started. And so when you reached out to me, I was like, oh, wait, I recognize that name.
Yeah.
And so here we are. So tell us about what's your story? How did you end up on Substack? Well, first,
Oh,
how did you end
yeah.
up with Medium, or in any capacity? I know you're not a 9 to 5 employee, but
Yeah. Oh no. Yep. I guess it's kind of a similar. My wife is an immigrant from Peru, and
mm,
we've been here since 2009. And I left the United States back in 2001. I went and lived in Peru for 10 years, and it was just one of those cases where I didn't really know what compelled me to leave, and I've been having a lot of
which country?
conversations. Though I left the United States,
Okay.
and there's just so much of a deeply rooted sense of the injustices in this country, but it's like it takes a long time. And a lot of what I'm exploring right now is I grew up in this red rural area, and I'm just been kind of walking through because as we were talking about the election. If you
Hmm.
look at the heat map of the United States, you have disproportionate electoral power to these red rural areas, and I'm just trying to figure out why is it they have such a hold on people that you can't. And but then I realize they have a lot of those answers, even though they're kind of buried in my mind, because you're just kind of it's stuff that it's like you're ridiculed. Intellectualism is ridiculed in these places, and it was always a frustrating thing to me because I enjoyed studying, and I was always like, oh, I want to get out of this place. It was a town of 2,000 people, and we didn't have
Okay.
any culture and anything like that. And so I would try to learn, and then instead of people congratulating you for doing well on a math test or something, now you're too good for everybody and you're a target. So it's just this endless sequence of things. So eventually, I got my degree and I went to Peru for 10 years. I met my wife down there, and I just we decided it's like, well, let's come to the United States. And in flying to the United, I just didn't realize I kind of was fooling myself because the anxiety I felt flying in with that plane. Again, it was that awareness of the things that are wrong in this country without really coming to that recognize. I think, and we talk about this a lot, how it's so easy when when you have white privilege like I do to kind of overlook the injustices of this country, but they're in there, and it's just been in watching how my wife's been treated over the years that we've been here. I've been exploring these ideas and trying to just do what I can. I mean, we came back when Obama got elected, and it was a hopeful time. And for the
Hmm.
first part of it, we're like, oh well, maybe things are on the upswing. And these last couple election cycles have shown that the rot was a lot deeper than we ever well that I knew. But we're trying to figure it out now, and through my writing, I explore that. And one of the things I do is I'm a Boost nominator on Medium, and I look for stories about racism. And I came across your story about starting an investment firm, and it's stuck in my that's one of the best ones I think I've found, and I nominated it, and it was boosted. And I saw that Medium featured that one for a while too, so I hope that
Yeah,
performed well for
it
you.
actually, when they did, this would have been 2023, I guess. It was nominated, or not nominated, but it was named as one of the best 30 stories of the year or something like that.
I
Which, I
deserving.
mean, I was surprised. And you know what's so funny about that is I, and it's just, it kind of speaks to sort of the way platforms work. Um, I actually published that story here first. I didn't really have a lot of subscribers.
Yeah.
I mean, 3,000 subscribers on Medium versus 3,000 here, it's totally different
Yep.
dynamic
Yep.
in terms of how
Yep.
they behave. Um, and I almost didn't even publish it on Medium because I was so disappointed that
Yeah.
nobody really even commented on it. And then
Yeah.
lo and behold, boom! And I guess even though I really don't publish on Medium anymore because it's just I'm all in for one. It's just too much. It's too time consuming to spread it around like that for me anyway.
Yeah.
But that by far was the most successful thing that I ever published on Medium.
I find Medium with their boost program, it's a good option for people that not can't necessarily be full-time content creators, but
Hmm.
if they have a great story to tell, you can if you can get it on with a if you find an editor like me who's a boost nominator, I can nominate it. I've got a pretty good sense of what they're taking,
It's a
and that's just
crazy story. I'll publish a link here
oh
because
oh
it's
yeah,
yeah.
we'll put it in this when I post. It's an excellent story. But it's just, yeah, that's the boost is and Medium is kind of is a supplementary sort of writing income, and that ties into I do all my content on Substack for free,
Hmm.
and so then I'm able to kind of cross post on both. And the
Yeah,
great thing about both Substack and Medium is you retain your rights to the stories.
true.
Yeah, and if you were going to submit to some other larger publications, which isn't also it's also a really good strategy for writers because it's just writing is a revenue insecure profession, so you're always looking for a
Tell
new
me about
market.
it.
Yeah, I know that one. So, it's just nice to be able to I stagger my stuff between Medium and Substack and just whatever extra I make on Medium, it's just like, okay, that just helps support me.
Yeah, it's I guess I've got kids in college doing my doing and I do probably an inordinate amount of research when I write something. It just takes me so, and it goes back to oh, I don't know, it's probably OCD or something. I do not want to be caught being wrong.
Yeah.
Or not I don't mind being wrong. I guess bad information maybe is a where I thought something
Well,
meant one thing and maybe I missed something and it really undermines the point I'm trying to make. And so yeah, so I tend to be super slow with my publishing. I'm getting better because I've got like 90 drafts in my queue.
yeah.
So now it's to the point where I've got stuff that's like three-quarters of the way written and I just need to polish it off and get it out there.
Well, let me say thank you for being meticulous and making sure you have the right information. I mean, that's I wish every writer did that. I kind of
Well,
avoid that by writing more personal experience type stuff and just
yeah.
exploring. So I'm just kind of avoiding the names of certain individuals who I wish didn't exist. So, you know what I mean? I
Yeah,
can
you
just
don't
write
want
about
to.
I write it. Go ahead.
No, I know what you mean. I'm working on something now, and maybe this kind of opens the conversation to what we were talking about offline. Um, yeah, I'm writing a story. I've been for the last week or so. I don't think super critical, but somewhat critical of um, Substack strategy that appears to be geared towards elevating people who don't need to really be elevated, in my
Yeah.
opinion. And I, I understand the strategy. I understand they have masters to report to, and they have to show growth and earnings and all of that kind of stuff. But at the same time, as a small creator, you kind of you're kind of what about me?
Yeah.
It doesn't take near as much to elevate the two of us, and it's probably a much cheaper proposition. But anyway, I raise that issue to say that yeah, had a couple of discussions a few days ago with Egberto Willis and some other folks where it's kind of come up, and I see a lot of creators. Um, I don't think it's um, solely creators of color, but those are the folks that I've spoken to that it's sort of like I'm the same thing. I hear what you're saying, and then I also see other people who don't happen to be black or Latino having the same thing. Where, especially people who are expert in a particular discipline, and they feel like, well, you see the same four or five experts on mainstream media all the
Yeah.
time. If they want to talk about the Supreme Court, it's going to be the same four or five guys.
And they're going to say
It's
the same thing. Yeah.
and someone in the chat just made the point that they're purposely, and it's a strat. I mean, there's no way it's not a strategy because it's what they're doing. But what I'm writing about is, so I've been on Substack for 5 years, so predates Notes when it was just a website kind of thing. And I noticed this from the beginning, really. And I have, I won't do it here, but I'm going to write about it. And it's all public information, so I don't feel like I'm, outing anybody. But I'm really surprised that not more people are aware of just the large amounts of money that are being directed to certain folks. And I don't know. I guess you know how it is. I would like to think if I were running a platform, there are all these people that have been here
Yeah.
who have been doing great
Who
work, and I
built it?
can,
Yeah.
and they're not, maybe they don't even. I don't think I have 10,000 followers yet, but there are people, and it's actually one of the things that caused me to start doing these kind of live streams is
Mhm.
I would look at somebody. I'll give you an example. Khalil Green is the Gen Z historian. So I ran across this gentleman. He was the first black president at Yale. Super smart guy. He has a streaming show on Nat Geo, and I had more followers than him,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
or subscribers, I should say. And I reached out to the guy because I'm like, well, boy, I wonder if he'll even, you know, if I can even DM him, right? And so I DM'd him. He was very responsive. We did a live stream. It was great, and I just thought, well, I run across people like this all the time that I may have seen on Instagram or wherever,
Yeah.
or and they just aren't being seen. And so, to the extent that I can kind of help elevate them, or at
Yes.
least at the least introduce those creators to my ecosystem, it seems like the right thing to do. So I would just think if I were running something like this, there's a wealth of knowledge. I mean, arts, culture, all this stuff, right? Why don't you create your own superstars? I guess is my question.
Yeah.
And I liken it to, it's tempting to go, it's easy, right? I used to run a trading desk, and I used to get in a battle with the guy who owned the place over who I would hire because he thought that I should be trying to get, X guy who used to work at Goldman Sachs or X person that used to be at, you name a big name firm, right? And without fail, when he would go out and hire those guys and say, hey, here's your new here's your new trader. I just hired him for you, right? And they were nice people, but there's a big difference in working on um, a trading desk at what we call bulge bracket Wall Street, the big firms, where people are calling you,
Uh,
as
yeah, absolutely.
opposed to what we call on Wall Street a boutique firm, which means small,
Yeah. Yeah.
generally, um, where nobody's calling you. You have to have the hustle factor, right? So I would say, I need athletes. I don't
Yeah.
need coaches. I need athletes. Right. And those guys, a lot of them, very nice guys, but they simply did not know how to function in the world of you got to go out and get it because
Mhm.
nobody's trying. And so I look at I when I started my newsletter, I kind of looked at it like that, like, okay, yeah, I did some things, but nobody knows who the hell I am. So I
Yeah.
got to prove that's why I don't paywall my stuff
Yeah.
because I'm like, I want people to read, critique, argue with me, say whatever you got to say, and in the end, you'll decide if I'm right, if it makes sense, and then that's how you get paid.
Yep.
That's the world I'm from. So it just puzzles me to see this idea that, oh, we'll just go get these cast offs from, these folks that got laid off at these places. And their names we know, right?
Yep. Yep.
But why do you want to pay money to a reporter? They're
Yeah.
reporting, so they aren't quotable. They're getting quotes from experts
Yeah.
in whatever
Yep.
the discussion is, right? So it's counterintuitive to me. But with all that said, and I'll let you comment, we America in particular has turned into a culture of celebrity.
Hmm.
That is how you have the keeping up with the Kardashians. People are just famous for being famous, right? You That's how you end up with a president that
Yeah.
is like a freaking convicted criminal who went bankrupt
Yep.
what
Yep.
a half a dozen times.
Yeah.
They're crimes that I have. I'll bet of the people listening to this, few if any know that his casino in that was in Atlantic City got the biggest money laundering fine ever in like
Yeah.
2015. Nobody even knows.
Yeah.
I'll share that on occasion, and people are just like, wow, how do I not know this? Well, because the media didn't freaking tell you. That's why.
Yeah.
So why
Yeah.
do we? So it's something that I'm wrestling with. I don't know. Um, I I think I'm right to a degree. I don't want to get in a fight with Substack about it because I like
No.
the platform, but the, the title of my article that I'm writing is "The Cleanest Dirty Shirt."
Yeah.
So it's a trading term where a guy wants to buy stock in a sector that sucks. Everything in it is crap, and so you pick the least bad one, right?
Yeah.
And that's kind of why I'm here because it can't be Twitter, it can't
Oh
be
no.
Facebook, right?
No. No.
TikTok. I don't know if it's going to be there 6 months from now,
Yeah.
and to their credit, this is sort of a I can do almost everything here. I can do video, I can do
Hmm.
podcasts, I can write. So of the tech bros, it's the cleanest dirty shirt.
Oh yeah. Well, there's so much to respond, and I think first of all, I wanted to say using your platform to elevate others, whether you got 100 or 1,000 or 10,000, that's exactly. I 100% agree with that. I applaud you for that. And that's how you do it. And I've been doing this from I started off on Medium. I was just reviewing independently published books because there's such an attitude. There's so much pretentiousness about people that are small press or self-published, and there's so many people that have they published their memoirs, right? And they talk, and that's always interesting. It's always interesting, especially when it's not something that's been through the mainstream media. And I think that ties into our talk about the first 100 days being the longest day ever. And part of our problem, a major part of our problem, is nobody's satisfied with the media coverage. Even people that aren't aware of what they're not satisfied about, it's the lies that are constantly promoted as truth. And a lot of the reason people are coming to Substack is because this is an alternate perspective from people in straight from the horse's mouth, as we say. And it's like it's new opinions. And so I agree with you. I think, but I mean, any business is going to be dazzled by celebrity, and if you bring in no names, there's a potential that that might help us because if people who know these big names then come to Substack, through them they might find us.
That is
So
true.
so
and
there's a
and
possibility
just I
there.
mean I'm not mad at Joy Reid for being here. I love Joy Reid. I wish I could get her on my dang live stream, right? Uh, and let's face it, they're bringing an audience with them.
Yep.
So I get that part of the appeal. Um, I guess if you really want to break it down, it's almost my message is more to potential subscribers than it is directed at them,
Oh yeah.
because these are wealthy people. I mean,
Yeah.
they're your $50 a year makes a much bigger impact on me
Yep.
than it makes
Hey, you
on
people.
them. And oh, on that note, I got so deep into this I forgot to do my what is it, shameless plug. um, my subscriptions are 20% off for the rest of this month and all the way into May. If you like this kind of stuff, so first of all, just subscribe whether you're a paying subscriber or not. Uh, Rita, I like that idea too of a Marlon Joy Reid conversation. Um, Tell everybody you know.
Yeah.
I think it's a wonderful idea. One time, this is probably, oh man, 4 or 5 years ago. I had, maybe not that long. I was on Substack and I wrote something about the Wilmington massacre, because Wilmington is about 25 miles from me. I was there earlier today having lunch with some friends. And when we moved here, I had no idea. Yeah, I knew about Black Wall Street. I'm from Arkansas. I knew about the Elaine massacre, Red Summer, that kind of stuff. Did not know about the Wilmington massacre, which is historically the only time that there's been a for real coup
Mhm.
of a elected government, right? And so she was doing a show, and I guess it came up in some way in her conversation. And I jumped on Twitter and I tagged her. And she like they went off for a commercial and she retweeted me. Oh, dude, I
Right.
was telling everybody I knew. Joe Reed retweeted me. I'm there now. The calls are going to start coming in.
Yeah. Oh no, that's perfect. But the whole, yeah, the media thing, I always think it's funny because I've been writing for so long, and just weird things always happen in the world of writing. The one example I tell is I wrote a story. It was just a letter to the editor for the local paper. I wrote it in 2000. It was prior to the first, so it was like 2015, and it's just how when I was out in public with my family, I'd always speak in Spanish to them, and people would harass my kids and my wife for speaking Spanish. So that was the topic of the article, that we have a right to speak Spanish, you know. And I sent it to the local paper. It was the most read article ever for the
Mm,
local paper. It got shared like 250,000 times. One of my friends who's a search engine optimization guy, he's like, that elevates the whole platform for them. He's like,
mm,
that's worth tens of thousands of dollars. So I sent him a follow up article. They're like, we're not going to publish this. And so see, this is where it blows my mind, because it's like everybody, legacy media or the newspapers are going out of business. But if you send them something that's in line with stuff that already had success and it made them money, and they turn it down, something's going on besides making money,
hmm
and that's why we have the same three experts always on the news. They always tell the same three stories, and they're it's because they're controlling a narrative. Substack is outside of that for the time being, and they're really hands off. They're going to be getting pressure though, because controlling the narrative is how you control a civilization, right? Medium is really hands off too, and I appreciate that. My position on Medium, I can promote stories that I think are important, and Medium will take them and promote them, and just get some eyeballs on perspectives that you don't generally see. I
hmm
think the public though has, it's the old Abraham Lincoln quote: "You can fool some of the people all the time, but you can't fool all the people all the time." Those lines, and I think we're at that point where people are just like this, and it does feel different. I know that since the election, in the longest 100 days ever,
mm,
I've been different. The day of the election, my psyche, just something snapped in my psyche. I'm looking at things different now. Assumptions that I was willing to roll with before, and this is even after 10 years of anti-racism activism. that was the breaking point, that election. It's like there's things that I used to roll with that are like no more. Everything I think is wrong, I'm going to signal now.
Yeah,
And it,
I have told people, I guess, from 2016 on to when Biden, really up until the last election, I, in varying degrees, have tried to accommodate people who, and I'm talking about not online, I mean like in real life. Folks, I live on a little island in North Carolina. Um, it's not the hotbed of diversity, of thought,
oh
or
boy.
otherwise. And so, it, I can walk, and it won't take me 10 minutes to get to a gigantic Trump flag on a $3 million house, and I'm kind of like, dude, what, things are going pretty good for you. What are you, what, take America back? And it's like,
Yeah.
what's your beef, man? What are you
Yeah.
mad about? But I know people that I just can't reason with them. And I've tried. I've had, you sit down, you have coffee with folks or a beer, and these things come up, and there's just no logic. There's
Yeah.
no, and it's no matter what what the guy does, what he says. There's always a rationalization, and I guess my cat is determined to say hello.
That's good. That's good.
But yeah, there's a rationalization that, um, I don't know. Maybe 5 years ago, you kind of said, well, they just made a mistake, or whatever.
Yeah.
And now, after two times, I mean, after everything that we've seen, heard, and experienced, if you're still down with that shit, I'm sorry. I got nothing for you.
Yeah.
So,
It's
you,
and
you
it's
know,
just it's getting harder and harder for them. I mean, like the attacks on due process. And what really frustrates me though is we got legacy media sitting in the room and they're not saying the obvious things. Cause when they're like, you get the press secretary, it's like, well, Americans are tired of having violent gangs. And it's like, raise your hand. It's like, what, are you ready to deport any white supremacists then? Ask her that. Watch her head blow up you
see,
with a little, she gets up there and she just lectures everybody and she's so smug about everything. And it's just lie after lie after lie.
yeah,
And it
she's.
doesn't worn
I,
people
I
down.
thought I thought Sarah Huckabee Sanders was like
Oh,
peak, you know.
yeah,
But this woman is like, and she's got that Stepford wife kind of persona that like
yeah.
she's an autonomous creature of some sort.
Well, she doesn't
That's
know how much
just.
danger she's in though, too, because she thinks she's untouchable. I mean, she's so young, she doesn't know how quickly things can change. Is kind of what
Mhm.
I'm thinking. And they're
Yeah.
talking with this attitude like there's never going to be any other administration. That must be their plan, but they're blatant lawlessness. And I keep saying we need to make Nuremberg defense trend. Or just ask her if she knows what that means. Do what the Nuremberg. You did something criminal, and you can't say I was just following orders. We just need to talk like that. And
Yeah.
we need our ex presidents to talk like that, just so that it's in their head. This isn't going to last forever.
Well, it's just as one of the, well, Karen said, Trump's going to turn on her. Ask Jeff Bezos.
Yeah.
You saw what
Oh
happened
yeah.
today. Yeah, that was a case study
Oh
where,
yeah.
for those who don't know, Amazon announced, well, I forget who broke the story. I want to say Politico, Axios, one of those guys broke the story that Amazon, they have, I forget what it's called, but it's like their items that are like under 20 or $25. They were
Yeah.
going to post how much of the price was due to tariffs. So if it's $25, they're going to tell you, oh yeah, $5 of this is the tariff. And someone asked about it in the press conference today.
Yeah.
She says, what's her name, Levitt, I guess.
Yeah.
She says that she's just talked to the president, and she said Amazon is being hostile and political. And
Yeah.
evidently, Trump had, before this came out, Trump had already called Jeff Bezos. Before I got done with my lunch, I saw it literally as we were pulling into the restaurant. And when I came out, it was over. Bezos,
Oh.
well, no, we're not doing that. And then somebody releases a statement saying, well, we're thinking about it, but it wasn't like we were going to do it. And it's
Yeah,
like, okay, what a
the
bunch of,
backtracking.
I, I, I don't know how we have become so overrun with so many cowardly ass men. I mean, look,
Yeah.
folks. So yesterday was my birthday. I turned 67. So I'm
Happy
old
birthday,
enough.
sir. Many
Well,
more.
thank you. I appreciate it. I'm old enough to have gone to a segregated school. I didn't go to school with white folks until I was in the seventh grade, so junior high school.
Wow.
Before I sat in a classroom with white folks. My parents were not like big time activists, but they marched. I mean, my mom they got beat up a couple of times. And so when you think about the position they were nobodies,
Yeah.
just trying to, get some rights. And
Yeah.
you got these billionaires flinching all over the place, right?
Yeah.
And I just can't understand it. I really cannot. And I guess I obviously expect too much of people, but man, I mean, I would, KS, welcome. Good to see you here. I mean, dude,
Well,
what? What's the point of being a billionaire if you can't tell somebody to F off?
yeah.
What's the point?
Well,
Right?
then the other part though is because I live in this, red rural. I grew up in the red rural area, and farmers, like the whole ideology of farmers is we're struggling economically, hardship. We work so hard, we never have anything. And then they're like, well, who do you trust on the economy? Republicans. It's like maybe if you stop
Try
trusting the
something different?
Republicans, you wouldn't be broke, and maybe that wouldn't be your whole identity. But you can't get through to them.
No, you can't. I had a guy, and this is another one of those stories that I'm like, it's almost written, and I just wrestle with it because it's it's personal. I mean, this is a guy that we got to be friends. I mean, like my daughter is an artist and she's in theater, and he and his wife would go to our kids' plays with us. We'd go, have dinner, all this stuff. We like each other, and right up until just a few weeks before or months before the election, he was nothing to do with Trump. I'm done with him. I'm done with him. And then out of nowhere, you know what? That Kamala Harris, she's a dumbass. And you just like, oh, dude, you've seen my family. I have a biracial family. How do you think we're gonna continue if you're telling me that
Yeah.
that's what you're gonna do? And I mean, we had this long back and we had a text conversation that lasted like a day and a half on and off, point counterpoint point, and I'm like, he's telling me, he lives out of state and they have like this is like a summer house, and he's telling me all these problems he's having with his business that he thinks are because of Biden.
Yeah.
People want too much money. I can't hire people. And it's
Yeah.
like, well, dude, maybe you just aren't paying them enough.
Yeah.
The days of you being able to hire a grown ass man to work for $7 an hour, that day is over. And
Yeah.
so, so he would talk to me. My business. I'm about to have to close my doors, and I'm like, so explain to me now, why are you voting for the tariff guy?
Yeah.
His
Yeah.
answer, well, I don't think he's going to do that.
Yeah. Yeah.
I
And I
think
mean,
about that guy now.
and he said so many worse things, like his dictator for a day stuff, and he actually the coup on the Capitol. I mean,
Yeah,
it was just
it's
another.
just it's just today I wrote something, and it was basically, I just figure if we're still, folks are still free to do so 50 years from now, they're going to be doing case studies on this
Yeah, I saw that. Yeah.
for because look, it's not Nazi Germany, but boy, it's just that whole mass hypnosis, or I don't even know what you call it
Well, yeah.
exactly. But
No, and
yeah, it's something.
And I was talking about with Zuri today too, how it's not just one person. We got all these people propping them
Nope.
up, and it's a whole infrastructure things propping them up. And it's just that indoctrination that makes people work against their own interests. And we just have to hammer that stuff's all around us. Like I had another one recently, like leading up to the election, people will try to have what they think are civil conversations with you. And
Hmm.
one of the things that they'd say is, well, how did we get these two choices? And I'm just like, what do you mean? It's like, oh, they're just both horrible. I'm just like, what are you talking about? We got this articulate, compassionate, accomplished woman. She's fantastic. She's totally qualified for this job. And we got this thing, it's like,
This
and you're
guy,
sitting there, but they try to say that to you as if you'll brush it off for the sake of in the moment. Oh, let's find a common ground. Oh, we can agree that all politicians are bad. And in doing that, they kind of indoctrinate you to not speak up for these other lies that are being hidden. And that's just one of a million mechanisms they just
oh
hit
yeah.
it with all the time.
Well, pardon me. This guy that I mentioned, and that was when I knew. You know how you see these movies and somebody will say something and the picture will freeze and the narrative. That's when I knew I was going to get whacked. Yeah,
Yeah,
I guess that's Goodfellas or something, right?
yeah, yeah. Uh-huh.
He says, I just mentioned her name, and he says, "Oh, she's an empty suit,"
Yeah,
and I'm like, okay, you can not like her policy or think she's whatever, not a good politician, but come on, dude. And I said to him, so if her name was John Harris, and she had this
yeah,
same resume, would she be an empty suit? If she was like a white guy named John, really? And he just kind of looked at me, and I said, and while you're thinking about it, tell me what Pence accomplished as vice
yeah,
president. You fill me in on that.
yeah. And she actually took sex traffickers to, held them
Dude, I know,
accountable. I mean, she
man.
did all these wonderful things. You,
Yeah.
you can't make
I
any
mean,
progress though.
it's water. Something I saw today that I did not know, um, which is rare. No, no, seriously. Um, because I have heard or seen people on this platform and other places on occasion, where's Kamala? Why didn't she say anything? And so I was reading an article talking about, this first 100-day phenomenon. And apparently, it's customary for the person who lost to sort of step aside, let the other
Yeah,
person have, so they don't look like they're trying to undermine. I mean, not that
yeah,
he did not need any help.
yeah,
He's done our job for us to an
yeah,
extent. I mean, if the poll numbers are any indication, which I think they probably are. But so I all that to say, I think um, we're going to be hearing more of Kamala Harris.
yeah. That's what
I,
Zuri
I
thought too.
personally hope she runs again. I'm reading. There's a book that just came out called Fight, and it. Oh, I should know. I'll post a link. I can't think of the um, two reporters, man and a woman. Jonathan. I can't think of his last name. Anyway, so far it's very good, and the book is about the just sort of leading up to the election, and it starts off at just right before the debate. And there are some things in there that are really illuminating um, with regard to Nancy Pelosi, and
Yeah,
she's folks have to realize. I mean, I don't think anybody's. Yeah, Hakeem Jeffries is who he is, but in the background, she's the eminence grease. She's the puppet master, and she's pulling a whole lot of strings. And I
yeah,
have liked Nancy Pelosi because she, when she was Speaker of the House, I mean, she is very skilled and she's very powerful, Lynn, as you say. Um, and I wrote about this a couple of months ago. We have this, we've got this star chamber of folks.
yeah,
Pelosi can raise a lot of cash, John, but look at what AOC is doing. She's raising a
yeah,
little bit of
yeah,
money too. And when you don't get out of the way for anybody else, You
Yeah.
know, everybody wants to hold on to that power until literally they get dragged out of the office on a stretcher.
Yeah. And that's,
Okay.
we've
And
lost two
I
seats.
feel like I can say this as a person who is eligible for Social Security now.
Yeah.
All those things that people are saying are true. However, Jerry Conley never should have been in the position he's in, that he just had to resign. He had to step down. Look, I don't dislike Jerry Conley. I like the guy. He seems like, yeah, I mean, you know, he's a good guy. But why we've got to stop putting people in spots because it's their turn.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. This
Yeah.
is
Listen
just
to the
my opinion.
people.
And folks can disagree with me. This is I'm simply saying give me some I don't even know how old AOC is, but I know Nancy Pelosi's 80 something.
Yeah.
I'm 67 something, and I'm here to tell you 47 something Marlon was a hell of a lot more dynamic than 67-year-old Marlon, right? They're just, you just got
Yeah.
to have like a reality check that we got too many old people. They're not swift enough. They can't, you know,
Yeah.
you look at Chuck Schumer, bless his heart. This man can't talk without his readers on.
Yeah.
I'm again, I'm sure he knows his shit. All right.
No, yeah,
But we're
absolutely.
in the moment right now. John, you're right. It's not Connolly's fault for wanting the job. What I'm saying is there was someone, in my opinion, who was better for the job. That was you think of AOC, and by the way, she kind of had it wrapped up. And Nancy
Yeah.
Pelosi whipped votes against her
Yeah.
to keep her out.
And there was other
We got to
fights she
stop
should have been
doing that,
fighting.
man. We just got to stop doing that.
She should have been putting her energy to other fights. There's other fights more important than,
Listen, man,
yeah.
and I know I'm on a soapbox here because I really have some strong feelings about this,
Oh,
but
I agree with you.
I I have not particularly been a gigantic fan of Bernie Sanders, but I'll say this much: give me some of that energy. That dude. So it's not about age alone. It's about the way you run a
Yeah.
business. I mean, that's what this stuff is, right? And look, man, John, nobody ever chaired a committee until they chaired a committee.
Yeah.
Jerry Conley never chaired a committee until the first time someone allowed him to chair a committee. That's it.
My
So
issue is
so
too.
everybody, I never ran a trading desk until somebody let me run a trading desk. You always and what I'm seeing Bernie do that I have like a ton of freaking respect for is he has recognized her talent and he's just taking her under his wing and he's passing that freaking torch.
Yep.
And
Yep.
I can't think of another freaking Democrat in my life that I have ever seen. John, man, you got to listen to me. It's her turn now, dude.
I think so too.
You don't get 30,000 people in Montana to come see a couple of left-wing Democrats if it ain't your turn. Now, that's just me. And that's why I don't limit this to paying subscribers. Anybody can argue with me, but I'm just saying, y'all, why do you think we keep losing?
Yep. And my issue is too. The centrists control everything. The centrist Democrats, everything
Mm-hmm.
is their way. It's the law. And then when they lose, they turn around and blame the progressives. And
I
they never
know it's
practice.
crazy.
They never practice accountability. I was in an
Listen,
argument the other day, and somebody was accusing me. It's like, why do you think Democrats are losing so much support? And I said, because they're not listening to the people. They
yeah,
dictate. They don't listen to us.
the
And
most
then the person's
popular
like, listen to
policies that
yourself.
we have, guys, they're not centrist. They're not
Well, yeah,
like
that's the other
Republican
thing.
light that
Yeah.
see what we have.
Well,
Okay,
AOC is a centrist, really. They're
I'm gonna
moderate.
I'm gonna age myself some more here. So I'm from Arkansas. I remember when I voted for Bill Clinton back in the day. I was literally standing out in the audience when he announced, at the old state house. Okay, Bill Clinton kind of started this Republican light. We
Yeah.
lost to Republicans and it shocked the hell out of us because Democrats have been in office for 40 something years, or in a
Yeah.
majority, I should say. Okay. So we took this. approach of we're going to be almost Republican, right?
Yeah.
And that's when they start, what was it, the Democratic Leadership Council or something like that. And Bill Clinton was the president. Thank you, the DLC. We started that. And it was basically, we're Republicans, but we're not that bad, kind of. And that's how you end up with the damn crime bill. That's how you end up with
Yeah.
all of these, even to some extent, Obamacare. That was a Republican policy. We should
Yep.
have freaking single payer.
That was Romney's plan.
But
Yep.
that was Romney's plan, exactly. So
Yeah.
that we
And
they're fighting the last war. They're
what?
fighting the war that you had to Republicans back then in the 90s. I remember when Republicans, thank you, welfare reform. I was trying to think of that. Pardon me. That is when being called a liberal was a pejorative. No Democrat wanted to say they were a liberal.
Yeah.
We always let Republicans frame the argument, and that is part of the problem. And we're
Yeah.
constantly reacting to some shit they said, you
Yep.
know, instead of saying, these are the things we believe in. And if it's not for you, vote for those guys. See how it works out.
I always say, I always say that when people are critical of the government, I say both parties are conservative. We don't have liberal representation, and it's like that's why nothing works. And that kind of helps to change it because when people are like, both the parties are the same, they say, I say no, both the parties are conservative, and they're not.
Well,
They're
that is,
conserving power for the wealthy people.
I told someone this the other day. So I've been out of finance for more than 10 years now. And I um, still talk to three or four guys that I have worked with. And, they're all black, ex traders, and they're now in different professions. One of them's still in the business. And I wrote something, I don't know, I must have had too much whiskey. I call it the Society of Black Traders, and it's like, like black yachtsmen I have known, right?
Okay.
so I talk to these guys every day, one of the other, some days, all of them. But I was in this argument with one of them, a friendly argument, but he said, Democrats got to be careful they don't go too far to the left.
Oh no. Yeah, that's what they
And I
say.
said, explain that to me. I actually wrote about this. I'm gonna post it. And
Yeah.
I said, explain that to me. What left? What are you talking about? Ooh, oh man, this trans stuff. And I'm like, so hang on a second. What
Yeah.
trans stuff? What are you talking about? Oh, he couldn't explain it to me. The reason
Yeah.
was he's listening. Republicans are he literally was giving me Republican talking points. I
Yep.
said, what policy does Kamala Harris have or anybody? What do you mean? Right? And so this is something that I've written about. We allow them to frame everything.
Yep. Yep.
John, it is, I can't even tell you how many people around here where I am that I was at a little block party that we have, one of my neighbors does once a year, right? And uh, this couple, they don't live here anymore. This guy's first generation from Italy, okay? He's got a "Let's Go Brandon" flag on his deck. And I'm like,
Yeah.
dude, you really?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
anyway, he comes up to me, all like he's getting ready to tell me a secret, right? What do you think about these trans women, Marlon? What do you think about what do you think about these trans women, participating in sports? And I'm like, I don't think about it.
You know what I say?
Why are you
Co-ed?
worried about the five
Yeah.
little 9-year-olds that might play kickball with the boy? I don't even understand this. This is the
My daughter did a
silliest
co-ed soccer league
non-event.
last year, It's like the co-ed soccer league. Who cares? It's like people are
I,
making yeah,
I mean,
it's
look,
silly.
maybe at some level, if we're talking about, I don't know, the Olympics, or but what I said to this guy is, look, first of all, I don't think about it because I got other shit to think about.
Yeah.
Second, there are, if that is happening, I'm sure that the professionals who understand the issue, that's their job. It's not mine,
Mhm.
right? And he looked at me like I had two heads, dude. He wanted to have like an argument about
Yeah.
this and be outraged. And I'm like, dude, you sound like an idiot.
It's
we're
it's also
we're
been
trying to eat some doggone ribs over here, and you're
well,
asking me about a girl or a woman swimming with guys. I don't care.
it's also been allowed. It's been allowed in the Olympics since like 2001 or so. I looked up the number recently. See, this is a case of when I should look things up. I should say I looked it up recently. I was surprised how far back that actually has been allowed in the Olympics. You know, but I think a part of it is you get these rural areas that they see sports as like their only way out of poverty, you know?
Mm.
And that's why we have this bizarre competition in like seventh grade basketball where the best players aren't allowed even to play because, oh, my kid's gonna go into the, to the NBA because in terms of how they think the only way to have any success is to be good in like a little rural town and to be a hometown hero
So,
basketball
dude,
player.
I'm going to tell you a funny story. So, I saw someone, I can't, I wish there was a way. I'm going to find out because I always, whenever I do one of these and I finish, I try to remember all the comments. And I wish there was a
Oh,
way that I could like save the comments so I could go back and read them. And, but I found it. So it's Karen Marie Shelton. So she wants to, wants to hear. So the way I write, my frame of reference is 30 years in finance, and I had a lot of crazy stuff, just real crazy, crazy enough for me to be working on a memoir that I
good.
will
Do it.
finish one day. Um, but a lot of those stories will inform how I feel about whatever. So you're talking about sports, dude. So when I was in Little Rock working on a trading desk, and I try to keep these conversations under an hour. I can't believe we're almost there.
No,
Um,
just keep. I'm good. I
so
got
I'll be
time.
quick. So this is in the 80s and early 90s when no one, there was no smartphones, and you talked to everybody on the telephone. There were no instant messenger, none of that. So I was a freaking unicorn. There's no black people doing what I was doing. There were four black guys in finance in the entire state of Arkansas. And one guy was like a retail guy at Merrill Lynch somewhere up in Northwest Arkansas. Um, and the other two guys, I knew both of them. One of them I worked with for a minute. So the
Agree.
assumption when I would call XYZ Bank and Trust or a Savings and Loan, whatever it was, they just assumed they were talking to a white guy.
Yep.
Dude, guys would say the most outlandishly racist stuff to me. And I had to make an adjustment.
Ah,
I had to decide, because at some point, there's a guy who's, he played for the Bulls. He's from Arkansas. I won't mention him by name, but he played for the Arkansas Razorbacks, and off season in the summer, he was an intern and he sat next to me. And I hung up the phone. This guy said something to me, and I'll tell you what. And this, I hung up the phone and I told him, and he said, "Man, why don't you curse that guy out?" And I said, "Well, okay. So let's say I do that. Who's jobless at the end of the day?
yeah.
What am I accomplishing?" Nope, it wasn't Pippen. I'll tell you, it was Darrell Walker.
Okay.
Darrell Walker played for the Bulls for a minute, and now I guess he's coaching. I forget where, but we got to know each other pretty well. We went to college together. He did a whole lot better than I did, but I had a guy say to me once, and this is the depth of it. So there are. I'm going to give you the sports story. I don't even know, we were talking about a football game or something, and this guy, he just went off into the racist thing, and Randall Cunningham, um, and he was talking about, I guess his brother is this guy Sam Bam Cunningham, and he started referring to them as bucks,
Oh boy.
and I was like, wait a minute, but
Yeah.
at the same time, this is happening while I'm doing trades for this guy. So he's paying me, and he's just sort of off on this tangent. Here's how ignorant it is. So that goes into this whole broader conversation about how, the Negras are messing up sports. And it's to the point, he's telling me, that the NBA is just ruined. A white man can't even get a chance because they keep dunking so much.
Yeah.
I'm sitting there like, this is the stupidest thing I've ever heard. He says, and he was serious. He felt they should raise the goal to 12 feet instead of 10 so white guys would have a shot. Okay. And they would stop all this dunking. And I'm thinking
Yeah.
to myself, do you really think that's going to stop Michael Jordan?
Yeah.
Do you
That's
really
all.
think
Yeah.
like 7'4" Kareem isn't going to be able to dunk on a 12-foot goal? But this is the mindset. It is in investments. I had a guy, I don't even know how we got here, but I had a guy who literally, there are, when you see, what we call projects, a lot of them are funded by bond issues, tax exempt. Um, so we're talking about this is an investment that's tax exempt. That's all this guy bought. One day I presented a particular bond issue, and it was for some um, low income housing. He wouldn't buy it, not because it was a bad investment. This was a guy in Oklahoma, by the way, and he's I'm sure he's dead now. He was the chief investment guy for the largest producer of Ford replacement parts in the country. This is the guy handling their investments. And he told me that he would not invest in anything that helped Aunt Jemima.
Oh
And he
boy.
had more to say about it. I won't say here, but he referred that in his mind, that investment was helping Aunt Jemima. Okay. So that's what we're dealing with, dude.
Yeah.
A lot of that sort of went under the cover, because it's so unpopular and so ignorant, and Trump made it cool to say that. Yesterday, I'm gonna try to find the clip. A reporter asked a question to the Barbie
Yep.
lady, and she said something like, "I know, the immigration policies are working because my Uber driver speaks English now."
Ugh.
This was
Yeah.
a reporter. I don't know who she's for, but we can imagine it's probably not the Washington Post. So she was comfortable saying that.
Yeah.
And she sure did. And so that's where we're at, man. So we got a lot of work to do, folks.
Yeah.
We got a
You know
lot
what,
of work to do.
Marlon, you're a treasure, man, and it's people like you that give me hope, though, because it's coming from the segregated, like you said, that background, and that was,
Dude,
think of the level of powerlessness there, and able to overcome that age, and we're in another bad spot now, but
yeah,
we'll keep going,
I
we'll
always think
persevere.
like, when you're ready to just kind of, we're thinking about just taking our kids and going to Mexico, right?
Yeah.
And but at the same time, like I said, my parents, they had way less to look forward to than me, right? Um, my It was illegal for me and my wife to get married.
Oh man,
You know,
you got to write
so
that
things
story.
are not as bad. I think we just got to a place where we thought we were on, to use the Star Trek, we were on impulse drive, and this shit was
Yeah.
going to take care of itself, and we just
Yeah.
gonna, and we stopped working as hard, I think, and Trump slipped it in the back door, and boom, 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 here we are.
Yeah. There's a lot of things. What do we got here? Trump and his whole
Is
administration Bolden's racist. Yeah.
Hey Zuri, I didn't know you were here.
Yep, I saw it there too. Yeah.
Yep. So y'all set your reminders because I'm gonna be talking to Miss Stevens here. I think it's tomorrow, right?
That'll be
So
a great one.
yeah, I think so. I'm looking forward to it. Look, Walter, it's been fun. You got me talking about some stuff I wasn't even planning on talking
Oh,
about.
I didn't mean to draw anything bad out of you. It was wonderful.
We got to do this again,
Absolutely. I
um,
loved it. I loved it.
folks. Look, um, just to circle back to where we started, guys like Walter, myself, Zuri Stevens, a lot of the folks that are in here. You know, we're not the celebrities, but we've got scales. We got some folks in here with some scales,
Those celebrities
and
are
and
rich
we
already.
need
So
you. You know, if you're in a position where you can support us, um, spread the word. By all means, do it. And you know, I guess we'll see you on the other side. I'm gonna be around. I'm gonna follow me. You know, catch me on Notes. That's my new Twitter.
yeah.
And subscribe, like I said, to Walter, Zuri, all the good folks that are out here trying to do this work. And you know, we'll see you next time.
Yep. Thank you so much. Thank you, Marlon. I loved it.
Thank you,
Appreciate
man.
you.
I'll see you soon.